The alternatives are all the other options that a negotiator has outside the current negotiation. In any negotiation, there is always at least one alternative, the alternative of not clinching the deal and leaving empty-handed. This solution may not be very pleasant to consider at first, but it is an alternative in itself, an option that the negotiator could choose if he cannot conclude with the current counterpart. But other alternatives are also possible. In our example, John and Chris each have an additional alternative. John has received an offer for his car of $9,000. As we said, when we introduced the example, this offer is not completely firm, but it does exist. Chris, on the other hand, has seen a similar car, albeit in less good condition, with a list price of $8,500. Alternatives play an essential role in negotiation because they increase the power of the person who holds them. This increase in power is both objective and subjective. Objective because alternatives change the balance between supply and demands. From the point of view of John, the seller, for example, if there are many people interested in buying the car, he will be able to put the various buyers in competition with each other and thus increase the selling price of his car. On the other hand, from the point of view of the buyer, Chris, if there are many similar cars on the market, he could put the different sellers in competition with each other and make them revise downward the selling price of their cars. This increase in power is also subjective, in that a negotiator who has many alternatives will perceive himself as more powerful, and this perceived power will have the effect of raising his aspiration point. Again, the higher the aspirations, the more the negotiator will be able to influence the course of discussions favorably. Since alternatives have such an important impact on the outcome of negotiation, it is advisable to consider them from a dynamic point of view. That is, to work on them, to improve them, rather than to settle for the ones you have. Indeed, when negotiations are long and difficult, both the number and quality of the alternatives are likely to vary. For example, the seller may receive a phone call from a new potential buyer. The buyer, on the other hand, may locate another car that meets exactly his needs. This constant search for new alternatives is all the more desirable because recent research shows that a trader who takes an exploratory stance tends to raise his or her aspiration level, even if the alternatives he or she finds are actually of poor quality. Of all the alternatives found, there is one that is particularly important, the so-called BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. BATNA is the alternative that is the most attractive to the negotiator. Therefore, if an agreement is not reached with the current counterpart, the BATNA is the option one is forced to select. Finally, the BATNA is also important because it helps negotiators determine their reservation point or limit. This reservation point will be the subject of the next video.